Good evening. It's March 25th, 2025 at 5 p.m. This meeting will be conducted in person in the City Council chambers and via remote video and teleconference pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 403A. Members of the public may join the meeting by phone by dialing 1-929-205-6099 using the link provided and the password provided, or via computer at the link provided. Members of the public may also submit comments by using the form on the city's website under government/city council/contact the council. This is a budget work session of the city council and not a business meeting of the city council. The meeting is open to the public but is not a public hearing. The chairperson shall conduct the work session with the committee members and may elect upon the public in attendance for either questions or to obtain input and information. All work products will be developed by consensus and forwarded as advisory to the City Council for any matter warranting legislative action by the City Council at a business meeting so posted and assembled. Could you all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Whenever it happens, I'll just have to stop whatever I'm doing.
You said
Yeah, I'm in the queue right now.
good phone.
It might be, you like my school photo? I get a new one
Somebody's
every year.
speaker is on.
Yeah, you gotta mute him.
Brett, turn your speaker off.
I recognize that voice.
My speaker is on? Hold on.
Yes.
Mike is on.
All right, roll call. Deputy Mayor Herlihy, Council Martell,
Present.
Council Hitchcock,
Present.
Council Trenchmontaine,
Present.
Council Hanselman,
Present.
Council Stackpole,
Present.
and I am Mayor Brink, and also present are City Manager Steve Buck, Executive Administrator Larissa Ricketts, and sorry about the speed reading here. Let's see. In order to approve the minutes from the City Council budget meeting held on March 18th, 2025, may I have a motion? Bob?
So moved.
A second. Ann?
I'd second that.
All those in favor? All right, and before we move on to the next thing, just a couple of little announcements. First, Ann Hanselman got several of us together, got Pete and myself and my husband together to go collect trash around City Hall, around the park next door, and around the apartment buildings because we had a few complaints about what was, they said there were a lot of needles in that area. Well, we were very surprised, and it shows that our ordinance is working. We found one bag of trash about this big, and we found 3 needles, and that's it. So I would like to congratulate the council. Our ordinance is working.
Good job, council.
So thank you very much. Also, while we're talking about thanking people, I went on and I've been fortunate enough that I could view the different school committee meetings, and I want to just take a moment to thank the school committee. You guys worked very hard, and I really appreciate it. Through all the meetings that you've had, each one, you tried to pare it down, and you had some very deep educational discussions, and it showed that you really do care for our students here, and I just want to point that out to the public. Just what a fantastic job you guys did. Also under the leadership of Superintendent Nelson, it was very impressive, and you could tell with everything that came out of his mouth, it was, what can we do to support our students here in Sanford? And even though the council was cutting some of the information, you could tell he never once did he say anything negative about us. He said that was our job. And so I really appreciate his being able to do that. So I'm going to explain. Michelle, could you pass those papers out? One of the things that, Ann Hanselman always gets me thinking. And you made a comment about how poor Sanford is, but we're growing. And so I thought, the school committee made a comment that we were very low for how much we spend per pupil. And I'm thinking to myself, I bet that correlates. So what I did was I went on the U.S. Census Bureau for July 2024, and these are the papers that Michelle is passing out right now. And I thought, is that true? Where do we fall in with all of the people, the other school districts and everything? So if you will notice, I actually put the little beautiful handwriting that is mine. Everything else looks very neat and organized, but mine is handwriting. I went on and I found the median income for each of these communities. And if you look like at, let me see, Cape Elizabeth, and they make, their average median income is $145,000 per household. Now, so I even numbered that as number one. Number two is Falmouth, which is $137,000 for a family income. So let's go all the way down. So that was number two. So I won't read each and every one of those, but you can take a look at them. You'll notice all the way down at the bottom, Biddeford is number 13 at $69,000. For the first time, Sanford is number 12. We're at least one above Biddeford, but we're still at $70,000 for family income. So if you look at all the ones above us, we are almost next to the bottom for income, which is one of the reasons why it is the council's task, like the school department is one of the departments that this council is responsible for, which is one of the reasons why we really scrutinize the budget tremendously. And and sometimes you might feel like we're picking it apart. Well, that is our job. But to let everyone know, and especially those people online, our job is not to tell the school committee where to spend the money. That is their job. Our job is to just tell them the bottom line. So that is our task today. We're going to be looking at all the figures. I believe the school committee worked hard, so I'm anxious for you to present your information. So we've got, first we're going to have some public participation, and then new information. David LaHoo, you're on our list. So come on down. Understand, under public participation, we just listen, we don't respond. So we would like you to give your name, where you live, and then you can speak.
This is just for the school budget. Well, my name's Dave LaHoo. I'm from South Sanford. And for starters, I drove by the library again today, and the good old library is in shambles. I'm surprised that it's still just sitting there doing nothing. Been better off if it was untouched. And
They're working inside, David, and then when the weather's better, they'll fix up the outside. You can't actually put it in a lawn this time of year.
all right. And in regards to the school budget, if I understand right, it's gone up $12 million in the last 5 years. That's still a lot. And when our good superintendent talks about the good job they're doing with the budget, that it's my understanding that the he says they get a 79% approval according to the election on the approval of the budget, but in general there's only about 7% of the population that shows up to vote at that time for the budget, which means only about 5.5% of the people are approving of the school budget. And that still the issue is in the state. I don't know exactly the minutia of what Sanford is in regards to Title IX and the boys and the girls sports, or whether they're in the girls bathrooms or the girls changing rooms. But it's still an issue, and as long as the governor is supporting those issues, that it's still an issue here in Sanford. Understood that 8 of the universities in the state are complying with Title IX, but the Principals Association of the state is still opposed to complying.
David, we're not doing political talk here, we're talking about just the budget.
Well, it has a lot to do with the budget.
Move on and talk about the budget, please.
Okay?
And let me explain, David, we try to not be political at this level, so it makes it easier for us to deal with one another, where we're both Republican and Democrats. So we try, and that's pretty been a tradition for all the councils before us, too. So I'm not offended by what you're saying, I'm just saying this is kind of what we do here. So please go
Right.
on and talk about the budget.
And that's my say. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And Brett Williams, are you on yet?
Yes.
I didn't see your hand up, but I was going to call on you anyway.
I was trying to raise my hand, but I couldn't find I found a lot of other gestures that I could find in Zoom, but none of them were appropriate. But I couldn't find the raise hand one.
All right. You
Sorry.
can actually literally put your own hand up, too, if everything else
Okay.
fails.
There I am. I'm just backstage at rehearsal right now for Grease, but I wanted to participate in public comment tonight briefly. My name is Brett Williams. I'm a fourth-generation Sanford resident, and our family's had roots in Sanford for over a century. And as a parent of children in both Sanford Middle School and Sanford High School, I want to express my deep concern about the additional $800,000 in cuts that is being asked of the Sanford School Department. The original budget already reflected painful reductions, and asking for another $800,000 in cuts will impact learning, make no mistake. And they're not cuts to extras or inefficiencies. They're cuts to the very core of what makes our schools function. And we're well past trimming fat at this point, or even muscle. We're now well into the bone of our school system. Class sizes will grow beyond what is educationally sound. Student support services will suffer. Programs that keep kids engaged and on track will be at risk. And each year we're told that next year is going to be even worse. We were told that the previous several years. But this is the year that we have to stop that cycle. The school committee has worked hard to fulfill its responsibility to provide high-quality education for every student. I watch every school committee meeting, and I see how hard they work. They can't do that if they're asked to gut the budget any further. And if we can't offer competitive salaries or manageable class sizes, we will not be able to attract or retain talented teachers our students deserve. And if we don't invest in our schools, we will not attract new families to our city. And we're not alone in the struggle. Rising costs, especially skyrocketing health insurance premiums, are outside our local control, yet the burden falls to our children to pay the price. So I ask that the council considers a less sacrificial ask of the school department. Our kids deserve better, our teachers deserve better, and Sanford's future depends on a strong, well-funded school system. None of us enjoy high taxes, but there is no wiser investment than in our children. Education is not a cost to cut, it's an investment that strengthens our entire community. Thank you for all the work you do. It is noticed and appreciated.
Thank you. Larissa, is there anyone else online? Okay, let's move right along. Additional information requested from the previous meetings is this Steve, are you presenting now, or are you going to wait until the next session under new business? Under the next session, is there any additional information? I do notice the school budget's on the next session, too. So you can get up just once if that makes it easier. So, let's move on to new business then, and continue to review of the 2025-2026 school budget.
Good evening. Matt Nelson, Superintendent of Schools. Back again, thank you. Appreciate all of the earlier comments. I too want to reiterate as well the thanks that I have in terms of both the school committee, the school department, but also our elected officials and city council on the challenge that we have to continue to work together to be able to work and try to work in the best interests of our citizens, in the best interests of our students, in the best interests of our school department. That is greatly appreciated. We continue to do that. I know we're already starting in the school side to be planning for our summer programming, and as part of that, we work closely with the Parks and Recs Department, and I know we're working on a situation where we can extend the use of our buildings for Parks and Rec beyond what we're doing for our summer programming, so that at the end, it's a challenge for us, but at the same time, it's what's best for our community, it's what's best for our kids, and we've always been able to do that. So I enjoy that, working together so that we can come back to be able to look at using all of our resources to be able to come back and do that in a collaborative way that helps the community. As I left last Tuesday in the presentation, that's where we left off. That was we had a taxation, an expense increase of 7%, a taxation increase of 11.1. We had a charge to bring that net taxation down. We immediately got to work on that. The meeting was on Tuesday. Wednesday, we held an A-team meeting, our administrator meeting, where we bring back all of our principals and directors throughout the district. And we got together and really rolled up our sleeves to continue to look at how can we meet that charge, but how can we do that in a way that's in the best impact, in the best interest of our school department. And I like that because those are the people that are working in the trenches every day. They're continuing to be able to look out in a way that is what's overall best. Sometimes when you bring those meetings together, you can have people that it becomes very territorial, that people are looking out for their particular area or looking out for their particular school. And we're very fortunate that we have a team that's being able to look at it more holistically and coming back to be able to say what is in the best interest of our district for being able to do that. Our school committee got to work as well. We've had two school committee budget workshops since last Tuesday's meeting. We met last Wednesday afternoon, and then we also met yesterday afternoon. So I very much appreciate our school committee in terms of the work that they're being able to come back to try to address what we have. So I have some amendments that I want to be able to present to people. They are in a particular order, and this is done, a strategy is coming back for us from least to greatest impact as we look at that for us. The first one that's on there is the paid family medical leave law that's impacting all of us, is first on the list. That has been something that all along we realized that as we're trying to put a budget together for our kids and our resources, here's something that's an add-on to that budget that comes back that impacts our taxpayers and also impacts our school department. This has been one that I've been kind of holding off on in hopes that we'd be able to use that in a way to positively impact our budget. And that meant instead of going through the state program, where they've started already collecting towards the paid family medical leave, that we could do a privatization to also be able to meet that's an option that you have to meet the requirements. In order for us to do that, where we are in Sanford as a municipality, the school department and the city share the same tax ID number. So in order for us to do that, we have to be able to do that collectively and do that together. And so we did go out and we have met with a insurance agency who's doing this, who is privatizing, and so they were able to go out and get quotes from us from various carriers. And so we did meet as a group. Cheryl Fournier, our business administrator on the school side, myself, we met with City Manager Buck, and his team, finance team, and human resources team. And we listened to the presentation. We asked a lot of questions. We then continued to ask more questions because this had to be something that, even though you're seeing some savings, we wanted to make sure it was in the best interests of the school department. So we did go through also weighing the pros and the cons of looking at trying to help with this. So we did agree yesterday that we will go forward with this in terms of a privatization. And for us on the school side, that's a saving of just under $110,000. So I start with that one. I think they're also, we're larger, more employees on the school side than the city side, but you're also going to see savings on the city side as well. And I'll leave that for Steve to talk about. But that's the first one we lead off because that one is a savings that comes back and doesn't directly impact our students or the school department. But I want to reiterate the collaboration between the city and the schools to be able to do that. That's something that I started by talking about that. Mayor Brink talked about that. And I think that's the same thing as I think the community needs to know that we're not afraid to do the extra work to come back and be able to do those things that have to come back if we feel like it's going to be worth it and it's going to be something for the taxpayers. And even if we went through that and found it wasn't, at least we're willing to put in that work to be able to come back and do that. So I'm very proud of that. I want to highlight that. That leads me into my second bullet, a pre-K partnership grant. You'll see there a partial continuation. We've been very proud of many things in Sanford. One of them has been how we've been able to implement a pre-K program. And a pre-K program that we're working in our schools and our facility with that. One of the things that we expanded this past year was a partnership with the YMCA, the Sanford Springfield YMCA, with a pre-K program with them where they also have 16 students. You might have saw that last summer. Governor Mills came down to actually for the groundbreaking for that, which is obviously a very positive thing for the Sanford community. And so as we looked at that, we knew that there was also the possibility of a continuation for that grant. And at the same time, we hadn't heard anything. And so we built our budget with the pre-K partnership, knowing that we still were going to be in very good shape with the subsidy that we received for those 16 students. And in last week's presentation, I did kind of highlight that in terms of where we were. We did get word about the possibility of the grant continuing, but that word came back that the meeting was not until this morning. And so with the circumstances that they were, I reached out to the Commissioner of Education. I know the Commissioner of Education. We worked closely together back in Westbrook. I consider her a friend, and I don't play that card often, but I called to say, hey, we've got a tight budget in Sanford. Is there any way we can get to be able to know a timeline to be able to understand that? And so we were able to come back where we did place a placeholder on that, knowing that the grant for 12 months, okay, would be probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000. So we did have the meeting this morning. Assistant Superintendent Steve Bussiere and I attended that meeting. Steve's been a great asset and advocate for our pre-K program, among many other things. And as we looked at that, we found out that what they can do is the way changes in the federal government have changed it so that in the past they would have been able to give that continuation of a grant going for the calendar year. They look at it from a January 1st to a December 30th. And so knowing that they weren't going to be able to do that, they can only give out going 6 months. They can only go out to December 30th, 2025. So they can't go all the way to for a full 12 months. So as we look at that for the 6 months, we went through the grant and went down to look at what we'd be able to charge back for expenses, for wages, for transportation and curriculum. and we arrived at a number of 70,152. Now, there is the chance that it could be extended for the other 6 months, okay? But we will not find out anything about that. The earliest could possibly be July 1st. More than likely, it would be into the fall, into October. So that being said, we are very comfortable with the idea of having 77,152 to be putting towards the pre-K partnership with the YMCA, so we'll be able to continue to be able to do that, and we can be able to use that number to come back. It highlights to me the creativity that we're going to be able to look at all options that we can come back. I also look at, we just don't accept grants for money that's going to create problems for us down the line. In this particular one, we're going to have a thriving pre-K program, as I mentioned, that's going to have the subsidy already there to be able to offset that. So this is an advantage where we can put $77,152 towards that. The next one on the list is the additional use of unassigned fund balance. This was something also in last week's meeting that the City Council asked us to be able to look at. We did go in, have some dialogue amongst that through the school committee. We do have a use of $300,000. We have the auditors that come back, and we had in the budget that I presented initially, had used fund balance, reducing that down to 3% of our overall budget to be able to keep that on. As was pointed out, that is our entire budget. That also includes a significant part of the debt service that's coming back that's a pass-through. So if you look at that, the reduction of $300,000, use of that takes us from 3% down to 2.5%. For us, I think it still remains that I want to point out to people that we do this with the idea that we're not trying to give relief back to the taxpayers when looking at this. This is things that we're holding on to because you never know what's going to be coming down the pike. I presented a budget to you that doesn't have contingencies for that, so I think there's always a little bit of a concern for that. We've also presented a budget, if you've gone back and looked at the history, where we have put carryover in to be able to adjust with that. And that can be a worrisome as you come back to be able to look at the cliff. That could be creating a cliff in future budgets for that we're always concerned about. So at the end of the day, we are comfortable with reducing the, having additional use of unassigned fund balance to $300,000. Next up, we have use of fuel reserves. We do have, as I've mentioned in previous presentations, that we do have 4 reserve accounts. One of those reserve accounts that we have is fuel. You'll notice in the budget that we had not used any fuel reserves. Part of that was because they didn't qualify. Our use to be able to use those didn't qualify. But as part of our budget process, we did remove Lafayette, the carrying cost for Lafayette, from our budget. When you remove those costs, which were, as much of those carrying costs were fuel, with that, it now allows us to be able to come back and access meeting the definition of using those reserves, and we can use 12,189 of those reserves. So we put those also as on our list of amendments. That also is coming back where it's, once again, something that's directly not impacting kids in terms of the school department budget. We did have extensive discussion as we're talking about class sizes and enrollments. That's something that is important to us. We've always been kind of keeping a close eye on that. And one of the things that we're trying to do is retain program, because once, and a budget hour as big as ours, where you can make the best headway is when you're looking at positions. And we have given up a number of positions along the way, knowing that once a position is given up, it's awful hard to be able to come back and get back. So we were looking at that really closely, both as our administrative team, but also as the school committee. We also feel, as we dug into that, we have a situation where we do have a retirement of a position, someone who is very high on the scale in terms of experience, in terms of cost, in terms of benefits. And so knowing that we replace that position, we'd be able to also have some savings, because We're not looking to bring someone on at the bottom of the scale, but we're not looking to have someone come on at the top of the scale. And then looking at some other salary and benefits pieces that we look at, that yes, they're helpful, but are they absolutely necessary in the situation that we are? And the answer to that for us was no. So we were able to also shave $26,500 down from that. That also extended to salary and benefits at Sanford High School. Obviously not as much, but still everything's helpful here, that we brought down $2,119 in looking at that. Finally on the list, what we have was eliminate the request for a new Assistant Director of Special Education. This was something that we had a lot of dialogue with, I think, last week here at the City Council in the presentation. We also had a lot of dialogue for that around our administrative team, and then also at the school committee. One of the big pieces for that is, do we need this position? Yes, we do. There's no doubt about that. But as we are coming back and looking at, for us, knowing what we are working with and also where we're going, understanding that the responsibility for child find for 3- and 4-year-olds is being moved from the Child Developmental Services, moving that over to the school department. We're looking at trying to make sure we're making that transition beginning in the 2027 year. One of the things that we had about bringing this position on, there was a lot of needs for it, but that was going to really help us be able to come back and prepare that work for us to be able to make that transition. As we sat down, it's been a challenging year, but we were able to come back and do that. That actually helped us in a lot of ways to help us see what we're looking at for the restructuring here that we're going to be able to start to prepare for. And with that restructuring, we feel that in this coming year, we can eliminate this position. We can also be able to have responsibility shifted, especially in areas for our IEP coordinators can come back to be able to take on some more of the responsibilities that have already, due to circumstances, been started this current year, as I mentioned. And then this would be able to help us still, by doing that, be able to provide a roadmap for us to be able to take on the 3- and 4-year-olds in 2026 and 2027. And it can also help us, as we bring this position on, better understand where that position is needed and where it can have its best impact. Rather than have the position and figure it out, we want to come in and be able to figure it out and have the position. So as we look at it, that's something where it isn't something where people are just saying, let's take this because of the price tag and it's really going to help. No, this is our team coming together, working together at all of our levels, whether that's our pre-K elementary, whether that is our middle school or high school, to be able to do that. And I'm proud of our team for being able to come back. That was something that I needed to be convinced as we went through that, because, as I mentioned, I don't want us, we still have to continue to position ourselves. And as I mentioned, this is probably a request that's not going to go away with that. I think you're going to be able to come back and see that. But under the circumstances for us, on where we look at everything, just to look at where the impact is and how we can be able to go forward, we are putting that position forward tonight as a budget amendment to eliminate that request for it, as we would be able to postpone that. So that total, if you come back and look at those, 683, it's just under 683,000. That is, as we look at that, is the total that we've come back with in terms of how we're looking at those and how we can be able to minimize the impact that would come back into where it is in the school department. What that would lead to is, if you look at our flow chart back when we started, the school committee started in February, if you were able to eliminate that and put those amendments forward tonight, you would be able to see that our increase on the expense side would be reduced to 6.4%, and our increase on the taxation side would be down to 7.2%. moving forward on that. And then, I think the city always likes, this is something that has helped us be able to come back on the school side, to be able to help bring that down. So, that is what our first crack at this is for amendments. As I come back and mention, I think we want to cut right to the work, but I can't go any further. I think Mayor Brink showed out what the impact is for the city. When you look at the median income, we've shown you what it is for us in terms of the school department and where we are in terms of our expense per student and where we rank on that. I know there is interest in people looking at class sizes. I don't want people to come back to say that that was ignored or that was something that we didn't want to be able to do. We dug into that to be able to see impacts as you're looking at it. When you are 24 out of 24, a lot of that is that we don't have some of those extras or some of those other intervention opportunities that other school districts have. We're pretty lean. And so with that, that relies a lot on our classroom teachers. There's not a lot of other academic supports there. And so we are kind of being able to guard that in terms of guarding those student-to-teacher ratios. The other piece is, I know it was mentioned last week about alternative learning. When you look at the number of students in terms of what you have as opposed to what the costs are for those salaries and benefits of that, we also dug in. That's a high school program. And yet for us, as our team, as I mentioned, is going from elementary all the way up, we sat down because it sounds easy. It sounds easy to make those numbers come back and be able to make those work. We dig in deeper behind that. We know the potential impacts that those would come back to be able to come back and always be shifted to other areas for us that are frankly already taxed in terms of doing that. So that's where we came back, trying to hold on to what we have with that, and that's what we've been able to present this evening.
Thank you. Questions, Bob?
I don't have a question. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the amendments to the school budget as presented.
Okay. Anyone else?
Discussion.
Okay. All right, so we'll begin the discussion. And I have a few questions first. If you cut down on the pre-K program, is that my understanding of what was going to happen?
Nope.
No, you're going to leave that.
Pre-K program would stay. We'd be able to take grant funds that would go into what was being able to be budgeted. We've already had our pre-K lottery, and over the time, we've got more interest than we actually do spots. And so we're not looking to be able to kind of cut that back. This is just more of the partnership of receiving funds that we're currently receiving to be able to extend those funds at a minimum for another 6 months.
And are we going to be able to bring in all the students that want to participate?
No, unfortunately not, because we still, if you look at the 6 classes that we have in our school department, the partnership would be another 16 in doing that. Right now, for us, I think the idea would be, I think in a lot of ways, there's been a lot of money fronted to start these pre-K programs that we've taken advantage of, and then once they're sustaining, I think that money is probably dried up in the sense of doing that. Doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to be able to look, but I think where we are right now, we still have more demand than we do have slots.
And as we know, anybody in education understands the younger we can start the kids into the school system and educate them, the less reason for the alt-ed at the other end.
Yep.
And part of my doctorate program was doing a study here in Sanford about the dropout kids that we had, and I had access to all their records, went all the way back to kindergarten. And believe it or not, most of the dropouts started by missing 30 days in kindergarten. And so the younger we can start, so the kids are used to coming to school and they like being there, the better chance we'll have for them to keep going. And by the time they were in high school, they had already missed a full year of school, And some of them were missing 100 days each year, even after that. So that does start that whole momentum of not going to school, not going to school. So I do appreciate pre-K.
Amen.
And the other thing I wanted to talk about was the Assistant Director of Special Ed. And I'm wondering if we're short-sighted by not putting that in. And my reasoning are, and I'm not telling you what to spend your money on, I'm just saying, I'm thinking about this, and I think of legal fees that we have to pay out because we don't have another special ed administrator to attend all those IEPs or those decisions that sometimes teachers make, like with discipline issues. And so then we have to be sued because we're not following the IEP exactly. And I just picture, however, when I heard 25% of our students are special needs, that's an awful lot of IEPs to try to follow. And it's very difficult. I know I, as a principal, try to stay on top of them in my building, almost impossible to do without having somebody in special ed helping me and assisting me.
And just sorry to interrupt, but I agree that the consideration we had here, is this something that we're being short-sighted with? I think that's a very appropriate question, and one I think we've struggled with as a team. One of the things I mentioned is, as you talk about the IEPs and the legal piece of that, that's always going to be a risk, probably regardless of how many administrators we have, just in terms of the nature of where we are today. But I would also say that I mentioned those IEP coordinators. And that's something now where we were shorthanded this year in terms of those, which then put a lot more pressure on our administrators and the administrators. With us being fully set with those and being able to redo some of those responsibilities to be able to cover that, we feel that that's going to be something where are we vulnerable, or is there potential exposure there? Yes, but I think our plan here mitigates that to the point that gives me comfort to be able to go forward.
All right. And one of the other things that we had discussed before was the alt ed program, and Ann mentioned maybe reducing it and not having it be the 4 years at the high school, just having maybe be the first 2 years, so there would be a reduction there. And the reason I'm stating that is plugging in the assistant director again. You know, could there be that type of savings so that position could be put in? I guess I see, knowing that 1/4 of the population needs assistance, I just worry about things just falling away and not being taken care of. And so I just think the alt ed, in knowing you're starting with pre-K now, we stand a chance by the time this year's kids are up there, we might not need that 4-year program anymore. Maybe we'll be down to a 2-year.
And we looked at that in terms of reducing staffing on that, because it wasn't something where we just said, oh, we don't want to do that. It was more about, let's look at this, let's study this, let's look at the ramifications. One of the things I think you mentioned last week was, with your background, knowing about, hey, sometimes you might want an alternative ed program actually at the middle school instead of at the high school. And so we don't have an alternative learning program at the middle school. So that's for us also talking about maintaining what we have as far as, especially the class sizes in that piece. That was a lot of discussion that we've had both at the administrator as well as the school committee level with that. And then also the idea about being able to help our high school students, especially with the middle school, being able to go there. That's why you're looking at trying to not reduce any more positions at the middle school, and also trying to hang on to the full alt ed that we have in the current budget.
Well, I would strongly suggest putting one at the middle school. And I say we have probably one of the best teachers I've ever seen in alt ed, Pam Leiden back there, and she taught with James Quintera at the junior high level, which really prevented a lot of dropouts at the high school. Even high school teachers were reporting to us at that time when we ran the program. The kids that were going up to the high school were much better prepared. So I don't know when that program got taken away, but it was very short-sighted.
And it wasn't, I wasn't here when that happened, but I'm pretty comfortable in saying it wasn't because of people's not seeing its value or its effectiveness.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable in being able to say that.
Okay, now I've got that all off my chest. All right. All right. Do any of you have any questions? Yes, Jonathan?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I understand there were a couple teacher positions that were reviewed. One was a high school and another was middle school. One of them was like 65K that looked like it could potentially be adjusted. That may have increased class sizes a little bit, but my understanding is the class size at the high school is like 12-ish. So I don't know if that doesn't seem like it's a very big class size. So maybe that's some more opportunities. And then there's also a Sweetser position that's come up a few times. Can you comment on that and why that maybe wasn't adjusted?
We did look at your first one, class sizes. One of the things that you'll have is you can't run a class size model the same way that you would at the elementary, the middle school, because in high school you've got so many different options to be able to come back for opportunities. And I don't say that as be dismissive. We're constantly still looking at that to see where is that point where we can still offer opportunities for kids appropriately and also be able to try to find some savings. So that was something that was looked at. We discussed that extensively at the school committee meeting. This is probably for us what we would offer up in terms of our first tier. So you do have that option. I'm unsure about the Sweetser. In the past, we used to have Sweetser clinicians into our schools, and those are something as a resource that has really dried up. Not being able to have those positions, not being able to fill those positions. We've been able to still have the need for those, so those are things that we've been able to supplement through the regular school budget. What Sweetser has told us is that any future opportunities that we have with them would come with a $25,000 price tag. So if we were going to be having a Sweetser counselor in one of our schools, we would have to, as a school department, be able to pay $25,000. As much as we'd like to have that resource, that's not something that we consider to be able to add into this budget. So you're not going to have anything in there for Sweetser costs.
Okay, I understood that as a cost savings. And then the ESSER positions, and understand that we kept all of those, is that correct?
I went over that last week and trying to look at how we've handled those positions and being able to utilize those in a way that are meeting the needs of the school department, but also balancing what the impact is on the taxpayers by us being able to prioritize other positions over other ones that we have eliminated from our budget.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And Ann?
Thank you. First, I want to also compliment the school committee and Matt, you and your staff for the work that's gone into this. And I do want to specifically shout out, much like Councillor Hitchcock's finding of the SALT, and I'm going to use that term, I think, forevermore. But you really found the SALT on the school side and also for the city with the privatization of the paid family medical leave and really pushing for that. So thank you for that. And, you know, I try to be really thoughtful, and it can be exhausting, actually. I try to be really thoughtful in everything that I do. And it's really hard not to be emotional about our schools, especially for somebody like myself who is an alumni who has had my kids have very successful educational opportunities here in Sanford. And because I agree that our youth are our future. As a city councilor, though, I have to look at I'll call it like the continuum of community, right? So the school department looks at lifetime learning. Our housing folks look at continuum of housing graphs all the time. I look at a continuum of a community, right? And it starts the moment you're born and starts early with education and pre-K through adult learning. And there's a huge amount of value that should be placed on that and funding for that. But it goes beyond that, right? And it's the full picture of we also need infrastructure and roads and storm response and police and fire and those things that allow people to age in place. And so as a counselor, I envy the school committee that can really focus on the school department. And I go, man, I actually wanted to be a school committee member before I ever wanted to be a city councilor. It's much harder to look at the big picture. And then you do feel at times, geez, like, do I cut the city CIP further and get more complaints about roadways and concerns about us backsliding on the work that we've done? Or do we push more for a position to be cut at the school department, knowing that it is impactful, no question, right? So how do you make those choices? And at the center of all of this is our current demographics of community members. And to Mayor Brink's point, we're poor, right? But we're moving that needle, good or bad. Sometimes I'm like, it's...
We're finally ahead of Biddeford, yes.
And then we lose funding, we lose grants, and it makes something's difficult, right? But we are moving the needle, and we're seeing economic growth, and we're seeing people invest in our community, and we're seeing changes that have been worked on well before I was here in this seat, and will continue well past I'm gone, and that's exciting, but we're still 50%, right, at poverty level, living paycheck to paycheck. So in that continuum of community and funding, everything we need to fund is the taxpayer. And so this is really long-winded, but when I mentioned the 800,000, and I shared some of the percentages last week, it's also because it was a reduction roughly of $100 and I want to say average or median house, but we talk about a $350,000 house frequently. So when I look at the impact of that 800,000, it was reducing the proposed tax hit, if you will, roughly $100, which felt like a meaningful number. So, okay, I have my glasses. So at 680 for 842, which I think was discussed as like choice 4 at the school committee meeting yesterday, there are certainly savings, no question, and work well done. However, is it enough is the question, right? And then you get to that thing of like, is the incremental difference in the tax rate by going to 750, which is kind of where I'm personally leaning, is that incremental tax difference to a house at 350 worth the sacrifice of the school department? That's like such a hard question.
Yep.
Right? But because my job up here is to look at the community as a whole, and because we field the complaints and the concerns of a much broader base of our community than the school committee does and the school department does, and you guys get hammered, I know you do, I see it, it breaks my heart when I see it on social media, but we get it both from the school concerns as well as the potholes and the why isn't my sidewalk plowed and and it's because we're underfunded. Like we need, it's much more emotional to talk about a teacher, but we need another police officer. We need another police officer so badly. We need another staff person in our planning department so that we can continue economic growth so badly. I wish I could come up with the money, right? Just as badly as we need some of these numbers in the school. So anyway, long story short, I'm really advocating, I will move the needle to 750. I'd still prefer 8. I don't think the 850 is necessary. That was your kind of original discussion point yesterday. I appreciate that was put out there. 8 for me is meaningful, but 750 I think would get us really stinking close. And also because of the 71,250 that the privatization is reducing at the city side, it brings us to kind of a sweet spot, the combination of those two things. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Any other discussion? Nate? And then Maura.
I'm just going to ask that we hold the vote until we've had discussion on the city side. That was going to be my only comment.
We're going to
Okay.
hold it.
Again, thank you all for the great work you're putting in, everyone here in the audience. It's a hard speech to follow Councilor Hanselman's speech here, but that was along the lines of, at least the sentiment I had as well, is that, something that, when Brett Williams had a comment about, it's an investment in our future, I mean, it definitely rings true. Absolutely. I also think about, it's bringing those young families in to help grow and grow our community. I think another thing that those young families look into is, what's their financial impact here? They're also growing in their own economic situation. So, seeing, that on the other side of that is, they see larger taxes, they go, well, maybe that's not the place for me. Like, it's that weird balancing act. So, you know, it's difficult. You know, I do like the fact that the pre-K partner grant came in where it did, and you know, I'm hopeful that, I think you mentioned that it could be up to 135,000 over the course of the year. We're just at 71 right now, so I'm hopeful that that other, I think it's like 57,000 can come in here and help some, you know, a surprise for us.
Yes.
And so hearing Councilor Hanselman's number of 750, with the understanding that other numbers are coming in, I tend to like that number. I could potentially see, you know, not if we came close to that number, perhaps, you know, I could you know, move my needle down there as well. But that's just the balance that I'm at right now, and I just wanted to share. But I appreciate the work that's been going in. I think, you know, there's the efforts being shown. Thank you.
Okay, Pete?
Hey, thank you for everything you're doing. I know you're working extremely hard. I'm also right around 750 instead of 800,000. One of the things that I do when we do contract negotiations, we look at the premiums for benefits. Where are you at for employees for their premiums? Are they required 20%, 25%?
We have a number of different bargaining units, and
Okay.
we have a number of different plans, and so we don't have a uniform one that's through. We're trying to always be able to, some we do that are at an 80-20, but we also have some that are not at that. And we're trying to be able to always move that needle as we go into contract negotiations as well. And I think over time, you'll have seen that we've done that. I think we could all agree with the cost of healthcare, we haven't done it enough in terms of doing that, and we fully recognize that. But that's, if you've been part of negotiations, that's always hard because people are not, that's something that they're being able to understand the situation we're in, but I'm not sure they're willing to make enough concessions in that area that I know would definitely be helpful in our budget.
It's quite a savings when you drop 5% for a premium, so just a suggestion. Thank you.
Maura, did you have anything else?
No, I'm satisfied with this. I'm actually disappointed with the loss of the special education assistant, but I'm satisfied with this. I think we're just kind of, I find that we keep pushing, but I'm satisfied with this. But we'll see. I do wish we'd hold the vote until we see Steve's presentation and really see a complete picture. I'm kind of hoping you have a little better picture of revenues tonight. Let's see a better picture in that regard and then make a decision. I don't know if it's table. I'm just
put a hold
tabling
on
till
it?
later in the meeting. If
Until
Bob's
we get to
okay with that.
You okay with that, Bob?
Yeah.
I'm fine.
We're just going to have a big discussion.
No motion to discuss.
And Bob, you had a comment?
Yes. So anyways, I'm fine with getting a larger grasp on revenues and the programs. So I'm going to set the Wayback Machine here for a little bit, and I apologize to people who maybe heard this short lecture before. But of course, at the heart of everything we're doing here is to determine the community's ability to pay for all these programs, both school programs and municipal programs. But when we look at the schools in particular, we all had an opportunity, wherever we grew up in this country, and this is not a political statement, to access a free public education. Many of us, or some of us, didn't choose a free public education. We may have gone to private school, but that was a choice that we made. We still had the opportunity for a free public education. Some of us had a free public education and maybe didn't take the best advantage of it that we should have for various reasons. And may not have the most positive attitude toward public education. But you had your opportunity for a free public education. And you had that opportunity because the people that came before you paid for your free public education, whether you took advantage of that free public education or not. Now you're an adult, you're a taxpayer. Somebody paid for your free public education, and in my opinion, you have an opportunity to step up and pay for the children today so that they have the same opportunity that you had to get a free or have access to a free public education. Again, this is a democracy. We'll debate this. Thank goodness that we do live in a democracy. We'll debate this, and we're digging in. This is where the rubber meets the road here. There's not a lot left that's not going to hurt educational programs, but we'll have that discussion. So that's where I'm at. That's where I've always been at. Public education, free public education is the backbone of this country, and we need to make sure that we continue it, we fund it correctly, because as it's been pointed out, the future of Sanford comes from educating our kids well, so they go out and and can have a prosperous life and continue to contribute to our community in a positive way. So that's my 2 cents worth.
All right, so Steve will get up and he'll do our chart thing. Are we looking at least having him put in the $682,099 that the school is presenting, and then go from there so we can see what that looks like? Is that a consensus of what?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll take a look at that. And what we're looking at between, when several people said about 750, we're looking at $77,000, the difference. And so we'll take a look and see what Steve has to present, and then we can have another discussion. So this will continue on. Thank you, Matt. Don't go far, although you can hobble to a chair. And Steve, we'll turn this over to you.
Before you do, I'm going to go consult with Cheryl for a number that I seem to be off. I've been plugging numbers in as you've been talking and whatnot, and for some reason I'm off. I don't agree with one of the numbers on here, so let me
Okay,
consult
go
with that
ahead.
and I'll be right back.
Talk amongst ourselves.
I was going to say, I feel anxious because Ronnie's not here.
Is she online? Oh, she's sick. Yeah. Okay, who's going to sing?
I'll lip sync.
You'll lip sync? You know, Ann, this would be a good time to tell the community about the lip sync contest.
Well, first, I want to put in a plug. Brett should have put in a plug for Grease,
Okay.
which is coming up this weekend.
Oh, yes.
I think, is it just Saturday, or is it both? Anybody know what nights it is? But yeah, Grease tickets are still available. You can purchase them online. I highly recommend it. I hear great things. He should have had kids singing in the background as part of his speech, because that might have helped sell some tickets. But I hope folks can do that.
All right. Well, and we've got a few more seconds, so what about the lip sync thing?
So next fall, we will have a lip sync contest again at the Sanford Performing Arts Center, and I'm looking at Chief Susie back there, who's trying not to look at me. Eric's hiding. Chief Small's hiding. We're going to do a citywide lip sync against the whole school department. That's what we're going to do. Chief Small said he was in.
Okay, Steve, we filled up the time.
I was hoping for dad jokes. I love dad jokes. People around me don't, though. But anyways. So what I'd like to do for the council and the public tonight, if I can get the computer to work. Ben, if you can share my screen up here, please. You cannot? Something's broke? Why is it broke, Ben? If I go to the podium, can we do it? Okay. Back up.
When does the new equipment arrive?
Because of a budget cut or? Maintenance cut.
this would be a good opportunity to go help yourself to cookies.
And Larissa made those cookies. They're homemade cookies. So please help yourself to those, and there's water there. Bring the tray up and just pass it around.
Somebody's going to take them on carrying this.
Thanks, Pete.
Steve, you're all set, brother?
All set for right now.
So good.
Okay, so what I'd like to do for you this evening is go through a very abbreviated playback of the council's actions on the municipal side of the budget for this year. This is slightly different than what was enclosed in your packet, and I do have the additional information on the Paid Family Medical Leave Act. Let me grab my notes on that. Okay. Gone through a series of there's 4 showing here, but there's basically 5 adjustments that have been taking place here. Starting when the departments had submitted their information to the finance department back in December, we started the immediate review. We went with each department, sat line by line, went through all of that. And on that first draft of the budget, we did $415,002 worth of adjustments. Then the second administrative draft produced another $110,340, and all of this is summarized in the packet for the public to have for information later on. So that we went from 13.12% down to 11.10%, and this is net to taxation. This is not just expense. This is net to taxation. We always look at that as a net as opposed to simply one category. The council did the third draft. They met on February 26th. They reduced the budget by $640,766. Net taxation got us to 7.98%. And then on the fourth draft, on March 11th, they reduced it by an additional $393,862 down to the current 6.07%. Those are total reductions of $1,559,970. This is the approved budget for fiscal year 25. On the left-hand side, you have the administrative pieces on the manager's budget, fiscal year 26, and then you have the council's 2 series of amendments from February 26 and 3/11, and then it shows the resulting amount for municipal services at $1.3 million. I will note that that's less than just the increase in the personnel, union contracts, and the wage insurances and benefits. Libraries was increased by $30,000 in that last derivation, $15,000 per agency above last year's allocations. The outside agencies, $3,627 increase over last year. That's comprised of $1,125 for York County Transportation and an increase of $2,502 for the Historical Society. Oops, I'm sorry. The debt service actually went down by $43,850, and then we had to add back in $306,620 for the fire station, the first implementation of the debt service. That's interest only on one half of the central headquarters station that will go into construction approximately a year from now. Although we're running into SLOTA issues because one corner of that touches a piece of the high school property, a pinpoint touches a high school property. So now DEP in their infinite wisdom says, even though you're containing everything on site, as far as stormwater management is concerned, we're going to open up the entire SLOTA for the high school, and you're going to We're going to move forward and amend that. Yeah. That's going to cost us an additional 3 months of time, so we weren't happy to learn that. Okay. The capital program actually is reduced by $181,210. The two primary large reductions there, the roadway CIP ramp was held back to $3 million this year, did not put the ramp up by the $500,000, but preserved the downtown tax increment financing funding in there, and the fleet management program was further reduced. Municipal revenues, compared to last year, we exceeded budget by $179,465, and with the revenue sharing went up by $254,000, and we had a net reduction in other revenues of $74,558. Use of fund balance is still programmed at $1,350,000 as being sustainable. I still feel comfortable with that. The audit has produced results, so we can carry that again this year and move forward accordingly. So there's a net impact to taxation of $1,246,936, or the 6.07%. This is the sheet that we always use for the calculation. You can see on there the municipal services is up by 3.7%, or $1.3 million. Libraries are up by $30,000, as I described a moment ago. Outside agencies up by $3,627, as I described. Debt service is up by $262,000, but that's 14.7%. So municipal appropriations went up by $1.6 million, or 4.28%. The municipal capital improvement program was reduced by $181,000, is down by nearly 4%, 3.97. Our revenue sharing is up by 4.77%. That is a tenuous number. Not overly confident we're going to make all of that, but we'll make the overwhelming majority of it. And so I'm not recommending that we change that projection at this point in time. The biggest impact to this number for us is, even though the state economy has slowed and they're projecting that slower growth, our valuation numbers are killing us. So just as it impacts the school, our valuation numbers go up, they reduce your funding. When you look at the Rev 1 formulation in there, we really are losing it on Rev 1 because our valuation in comparison to the rest of the state. So Southern Maine is growing more rapidly in value than the other parts of the state. So when you look at that, your proportion goes up, you lose it on Rev 1. Also, as our mill rate comes down on Rev service center communities in the state that looks at the higher than normal impact for high mill rates, our mill rate continues to come down. So we're taking it on the chin on the Rev 2 as well. So, for example, Biddeford, it was last year or the year before, they dipped below the, I think the Rev 2 was set at 11 mills. They dipped below that, lost all Rev 2. Just reduced, lost all of Rev 2. So that hurt them as a service center. So we have municipal revenue set this year at $20,414,900. It's an increase of just $179,465, or 0.89%. So is it an expense problem? Is it a revenue problem? I would say for this year, it's a revenue problem. It is flat. Right? So that being said, we have the use of undesignated fund balance of $1.3 million, so we have to raise $21,795,636 of taxation in order to support the municipal services. That's an increase of $1.2 million, or 6.07%. So I won't go through all of these categories here, but each year we break this out so the individuals can see insurances and benefits are up by $489,000. Wages all across the board are up by $1,082,000. The general obligation bond is up by $262,410. The reason these, our finance director highlighted these three in yellow is these are predetermined. The council's already voted on all of these actions. So you have, about $1.8 million that are predetermined in this, and then you can look at the categories Non-contract services versus contract services, almost a complete offset. Non-contract went up, was reduced by 456,000, and contract services went up by 300,000. Supplies are down by 172. Utilities, that's a positive, it's only up by 19,000. I've seen years with that is, 3-4 times that. Utilities were relatively stable for us. Vehicle and gasoline, diesel, even though we're not using more units, but we saw the reduction there on our price points. Vehicle operation is up by 45,000, again, on the maintenance side of things. And our radios continue to go up, so that's up by 13,000. So, and if you take those categories, the reason we look at those categories is they're the largest out of the overall operations expense. All of the categories combined in the entire budget book changed by $45,798. All right, this is the debt service. I highlighted the yellow, the fire stations, so that first year debt service at interest only is $306,260. This starts our progression. Not to belabor this for too long tonight, but we've had a series of derivations. LD 185, we only got a 10% increase on what's allowed to go towards our public safety buildings. There's another piece of legislation that goes after that again, that we note that some of the taxation committee members are co-sponsors on that. So we're hoping that they speak favorably on that. It actually benefits us more than 185 would have. And we continue to strategize on how we can best use tax increment financing going forward towards equipment, assignment of equipment replacement, and other elements within the fire stations. There's an operational component in this last piece of legislation where you could take the operational pieces of police, fire, and public works buildings and take those into account under TIF, as well as the percentage which we believe will get set at 50%, so you'll be able to offset 50% of that debt service out of TIF. And the other 50% we can make up in the other categories. So we continue to chip away at that. So the public is aware that, we are well aware that the city voted in the debt service for those fire stations. And I believe the commitment from the city council was that they would do anything and everything they could to mitigate that impact so it doesn't hit net taxation. So our ability to do that with tax increment financing is a significant tool that we know how to do well. So we're anticipating we have a major industry coming in within the pre-existing industrial park. There's 10 new lots coming in for the IS, the Information Technology Park. And there's a significant piece of land that the IDC bought to foster businesses coming off the base at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard to be here in our community. So knowing all of that, when we wrap TIF districts around all of that new growth that's coming, we should be able to negate this debt service for our fire stations from general taxation. All right, so I won't go through all of these. This is the listing of what took place for the first adjustments under the manager's first draft. The next page is the listing of all of the adjustments that were done for the second derivation. Again, administrative adjustments that were brought to the council for a starting point on 2/24. This is the listing. Everything with an X is the actions that the council took in order to take $640,766 out of the budget that evening, working on the budget. And then the last derivation where the council took out an additional $393,862 and the actions that were taking place in there. So on the expense side, I'd like to bring to you an additional reduction of $68,597 this evening. That comes from the paid family medical leave. I did a slide on this this afternoon because it was hot off the press yesterday. We don't want to get things done too far ahead, right? So, I want to reiterate, as our superintendent stated, it was a very good process. It was a very good insurance agent that brought the information forward to us. Multiple quotes on state pre-approved insurance carriers that already do paid family medical leave in other states. So by selecting from those carriers that are on the pre-approved list, we know that we can get a waiver going forward to get out of the state program. So on this slide, we explored competitive quotes from state-approved providers. We chose the most competitive option for the combination of the city and the school. That's going to be Unum. I say it's going to be. I'm going to bring this to you on April 1st and ask you to accept us getting out of the state program and going to the private side of the insurance program. I would recommend this, that the private insurance option over the state program fulfills the state mandated program at a lower cost, not significantly lower by year 3, but it's the 3-year savings that we're looking at in total. On the left-hand side of that, you will see if the council authorizes this for us on April 1st and the school moves forward as well, between April 1st and the end of this fiscal year, we'd save $20,307 on the city's premiums. The employees will save the same. This is just the city piece, right? For fiscal year 25-26, that's what I'm bringing to you tonight. We could take out of our budget $68,597 because we would not pay our first premium into the insurance carrier until May 1st of 2026. And there may be an additional quarter worth of savings, another $20,000. We can't project that yet because the state is talking about, boy, everybody's jumping out and going private, kind of a small pool of people putting into this. Well, maybe we'll keep collecting premiums until August. So if they don't start the benefit until August, we don't have to start paying premiums to our insurance carrier until the state starts the program. So we'd have another quarter of savings there, but I don't dare to give you that right now. So on the right-hand side of this slide, this is the information provided to us by the insurance agent for that next fiscal year. It compares up in the green, it compares what the state's program is at the 0.5% on our projected payroll, and then the bottom in the purple shows that the premium is going to be set at 0.933% as opposed to the 1%. So when you split that up, the city gets savings primarily in this first year on the delay of paying any premiums. But in year 3, there's still $5,440 worth of savings in year 3 when the full thing takes effect at the 0.933 as opposed to the 1%. Right? So if I take that $68,000 worth of savings, that puts the city down to net taxation of $1,178,000 or 5.73% from where we started this evening. Entertain any questions on the budget.
As far as the private insurance at 0.993, it's very close to the 1%, but it looks like it adds up. Is that a set price? Is that expected to go up in the next 3 years, or is that kind of?
It's insurance. Of course it is.
I'm just wondering. Well, that's my thought. It may, we may see a savings the first year, and then are we tied into that even if it goes up, or can we switch back over to the other?
If you allow us to go into this program, we've locked in for that 3-year period.
At that rate?
Yes.
Or is that adjustable?
No, at that rate.
Fixed rate? Okay, thank you.
So when we were talking about this Monday, we had our last meeting on this, favorable aspects that I note is that it's an experienced and known carrier. So Unum does this program in multiple states. We don't even know that the state's going to go self-insured, and they're going to have a third-party administrator not yet named, so we don't know who that third-party administrator is going to be, nor do we know that they're going to have adequate reserves gleaned from their revenue collection in order to support their program. I also have a concern that the state is starting to show that they have a shrinking pool right on the start. That's not good if you're trying to collect enough revenues for a self-insured program and you have a shrinking pool. So I don't see the stability there. When you look at the risk management side of the pools. So if the city and the school are a pool together, and we're under Unum as a private insurance carrier, we know our pool, and we can do our best to manage our pool. If we're part of the state's pool, we don't have any ability to manage that pool. It's everybody else that is thrown into that mix. Our savings are really in the first 1.5 years of this program. By year 3, you can see that it's barely a savings for the city, it's $5,400, but to get that savings in the first 3 years is very positive. Now, at the end of this 3-year period, when you get a new number quoted from Unum or other insurance providers at that point in time, and they look at our utilization in our self-defined pool, we'll get new quotes from that. If it's unreasonable in comparison to what the state's doing, we can opt back into the state program at the end of that 3-year period. So if you approve this on April 1st, we would ask that you do that. We would, after April 15th, we can apply to the state for a waiver. We'd apply for that waiver. Stacy Howes, our HR director, has already talked with the director at the state level. He says absolutely. We can stop collecting. If you approve this on April 1st, we will have stopped collecting deductions from employees' checks and putting money aside on the city side of that, the last pay period in March. We won't collect from that point forward. We'll start our savings then. The only con that we identified is city uses Unum now for our short-term income protection program. The response was less than stellar during COVID. HR notes that it's improving now, and that we see positive aspects by the local agent that we have selected as being a cornerstone to ensuring that Unum stays on task with using that insurance agent as our aid in that. So as I said in the meeting, I want to be able to yell at the party that's administering the program. I know how ineffective that is at the state, but we know how effective it is when we have somebody that we have under contract, to underwrite our plans. So I see that as being very positive. So any other questions about the insurance? So we're going to go privatized, and from what we know, the majority of larger scale businesses are all going to the private side of this and opting out of the state program.
Yes, Ann?
So just in terms of the city budget, we've done a lot of work on it, Steve. There are 2 items that kind of bubble up for me in terms of wanting to better understand, or I guess argue for keeping them. One is the parks vehicle at $71,650, and I think that there is a $10,000 or $12,000 trade-in, so it's like let's call it $60,000. And just wondering again if we might be able to potentially increase the life of that. I know that's risky with repairs and maintenance and so forth, but that's one. The other is the assistant assessor position, and looking at adding that position. And I think I just want to revisit the approach to that, being that we talked about not adding any positions this budget cycle, and was the rationale for doing that because we were increasing fee. I just want to talk a little bit as a council about the rationale for doing that around making it work, and we did that in the same time that we increased fees. And is that kind of our rationale for doing that, I guess, or?
No, I don't correlate the addition in the assessing department to increased fees at all. So on the assessing side, that's an $88,000 hit that we had to put into the increase that we had to put into the budget. It's in these numbers that have been presented here this evening. The largest part of that is about the succession planning in that department. We had a significant resignation there. That resignation has now been rescinded. So it's about building back the department. The department has been understaffed for decades, so the city had a half-time lead assessor, George Green, that worked for us. He was actually employed by Old Orchard Beach, and we hired him back here half-time for the city side. We have a full-time deputy assessor in there and an administrative position. That's what the city has had for long before I started and for the 15-ish years that I've been here. That being said, we have done a partial commercial revaluation in that period of time, but no full revaluation and listing of the city for 30 years. So we are far due. So when you talk with our lead assessor, the records are in a difficult state in order for to have a revaluation company come in, because they have to start with clean records and then go out and do the listing. And otherwise, they're just going to put good data into a bad data set, and it's not going to produce the end results. So in order to accomplish that, we need trained significant staff in there to do that. We need an increase in that staff, and we know that we have 2 potential retirements in the next year and a half in that department. So thus was the build back of the department in preparation for that. We also believe that we can do a reorganization of the department when one of those retirements come along. We'll hire a different position to replace that retirement and reduce the cost in the department at that point in time. The addition of that deputy assessor has to produce an additional $3 million in our tax rolls, i.e., correcting listings, working on the personal property. Our lead assessor in the last 2 years has done a significant amount of work on personal property that was not listed in our system, and there's been a huge increase in valuation coming in, for which most of it is Betty qualified, so that the state pays us the 50% of that, the businesses don't. So it's our way of getting more money out of the state. So we believe that this position will nearly pay for itself in this first year, just gleaming on the personal property.
So net zero if it goes well.
Beg your pardon?
Net zero is the anticipation with increased value that isn't currently being taxed.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's the goal, right? So the Parks and Recreation truck, I don't have the full narrative in front of me. I know Brady is on the line here as well, but that's a frontline truck. That's a truck with a dump body on it. I've given out some further information as to how various trucks have been swapped between Parks and Rec and the Highway Department. The Highway Department gave up a stake body truck, passed it down to the Public Works. The former fire marshal truck went to the Fire Department, was disassembled and reassembled with a plow frame put on the front, became their frontline truck for plowing the stations. That truck that they were using for that was then retired and went to Public Works. They fixed it up. They're running that on the road. So there hasn't, there's not a lot of excess inventory kicking around here anymore. So when you look at the 18-year-old truck that they're replacing in the Parks Department as a frontline truck with a dump body on it and whatnot, it's very, very needed. And if I remember my numbers correctly, I think we're down to just barely $200,000 in the CIP for the Parks Department for this year. So,
Any other questions?
there was also a question around the chief's mechanics position. So I want to be sure that everybody's clear on that. That's not a new position. So I've given information to the mayors around that position, showing that there's the makeup in there in the maintenance shop has been the garage foreman, a parts helper, and then 3 mechanics. So again, the succession planning, we have our garage foreman, shall we say, has some age with him. He's a phenomenal guy, right? He's got to retire at some point. Everybody has to retire at some point. So we reassigned one of those 3 mechanics positions, bolstered the wage through a memorandum of understanding with the union back in December, bolstered the wage on that to attract a qualified mechanic to come into that, to be a step below our garage foreman, get training, get familiar with the department. Garage foreman retires out, that person steps up to the foreman position, and then we hire back a mechanic. So that was the process for that. So there's not a change in the number of positions. It was a slight pay increase for that lead mechanic to get somebody on board, get them trained for the succession that needs to happen there.
Okay. Jonathan?
And one thing, I know we looked at it a few months ago, but are there any open positions that we could revisit before we kind of close things out?
I don't believe so at this point in time. So we don't have any long-term positions that have been vacant for an extended period of time. The last one of those was the construction inspector that was filled just about a year ago, and that's been working well for us. We do have the juggle of, let me grab some water.
And I think that's because we retitled our positions and the job descriptions to fit what is really what is happening. Plus, we also bought the pay scale up to market rate, and I think that helped us fill our positions.
It did in Public Works,
So,
yes.
and I think last year, Jonathan, you would have seen a bunch of positions emptied, and this year we don't have that.
Yeah, last year there were quite a number in different departments, so
Yeah.
it's good to see those filled.
So right now in Public Works, we're missing the lead mechanic, an EO1 and an EO3, but now I have to call them
Yeah.
a heavy truck, the EO3s, the EO1s are heavy truck, and the EO3s are crew chiefs, I'm sorry. So better job description for what their job performances are. So we're missing 3 positions in there. We had them filled. Sometimes after you've made the offer and you get the background check, you find there's some difficulty in the driving records, so they don't get to come on board. So let's see. Fire department, we're muddling around with 4 positions in there. Firefighter medics, had brought 4, lost 1, backfill 3 there. Going to have 1 outstanding with two retirements staring us in the face. Police department, 4 outages there right now, with some employees out on injuries as well. So that's that churn. Two positions short in dispatch, the normal churn. Get there, then we don't. Then we get there and we don't. We get there and we don't. But that's the normal churn for us, staying with a vacancy rate around the 5.5% to 6% rate.
Okay, so like say for the dispatch, you mentioned 2 positions, those are kind of the normal rotation. But we need to have both of those listed as open to keep those filled?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They're actually asking for more staff, but we can't see the daylight to do that. Fire department still needs 2 positions to fill their staff. They're working 2 at 13 and 2 at 12, 2 shifts at 13, 2 shifts at 12. So they still need 2 more positions there as well. So we're trying to generate revenue enough in order to be able to accomplish that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I think we're ready to move on to your chart.
Yeah, so Ben, what am I going to do? Because I had that all loaded up.
And I'm going to make a correction. It wasn't 67,000, the difference. It's, 77, it's 67. It's around there. Yeah. Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute break while they do that. Get up and walk around.
How much snow did it get in Ellsworth this week or yesterday? Oh, you weren't up there? You weren't up there? Oh, okay.
No, soon enough, maybe a couple weeks ago to Farmington, so.
It's a nice trip, too.
I think we're not as bad, about 2 hours. South Bear or something. Hour and a half. All over the place.
Yeah, well, you get to see the state.
It's true. I think I've had a case in every county in the state. I haven't been to every courthouse yet. Madawaska's hard to get to.
Madawaska, yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting close to hearing every one of them. After that, I don't.
It doesn't matter.
After that,
Yeah.
I'll do Zoom calls if it needs to. It's weird to practice throughout the state where I heard that court was canceled. I mean, like it's really nice out right now.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't think of that.
Well, you probably know this.
was just going to say, we could share some pug photos, Steve, while you're working, if that would be helpful. Pete and I are sharing pug photos over here. And I think I saw Matt. Matt, she could bring his pug on TV with him. Oh, we're getting close. Yeah.
Okay, so we're back live. Let me zoom in here. It's hard to see this. There we go. So each of the boxes in yellow are going to be adjusted, either have been or will be adjusted tonight. I have not put the valuation, the $20 million, I haven't put that in here yet. So let's, before we do, let's pause. On the municipal side, this was adjusted by the $68,597. That's your paid family medical leave reduction. The school department was adjusted by all of the elements that were brought forward this evening. The in last week, yeah, I get that 58,000 from last week. Yep. And then you had the increase over here for the use of reserves as well as the carry forward. It's highlighted in those sheets. So the result, before we change any valuation, we would go to an estimated mill rate of 17.15, an increase of $1.01 per thousand, or 6.25%. Over here in the yellow side, let me zoom in on this some more for us. So this looks at a $350,000 homestead, $350,000 property card, home, with a $25,000 homestead exemption on that, with the change in the 1.01, the dollar per and 1 cent per thousand, so it'd be a $327.78 increase on that $350,000 home, the $25,000 exemption. Total net increase for net taxation is estimated at $2,515,127.50. What we have not yet adjusted is our assessor has $20 million of valuation that's come onto our books in comparison to last year, and bear in mind that valuation is not complete yet. That, when you bring that valuation on, it'll bring us to $17.01 for the estimated mill rate, or 87 cents per thousand increase year over year, which is 5.4%. And it would bring that same $350,000 home with a homestead exemption down to $283.44 increase year over year. Other elements that are still open for discussion. The 20 million was given to me was a raw number. I don't have the categories as to what's better, what's Betty, what's real property. So we're just taking it as real property on the sheets here. There will be adjustments to the homestead exemption, the amount in here, the Betty, the overlay will be subject to, council will get to review that before the taxation is set. Don't have to set it as high as 432. That's what it came out to be last year. You could set it lower, you could set it higher, but we stagnate that year over year so we can just show what the impacts are for the budgeting process that you're in now.
Any questions? Jonathan?
Can you scroll back over to that yellow impact for the 350K? Thank you. And one additional question. This is rolling everything in together, correct?
City and school, all of the adjustments that have been done to the city, all the adjustments that have been done to the school.
Okay.
That even includes that $20 million of increased valuation.
Okay.
It would be 5.4% net taxation year over year.
Ann?
So Steve, for giggles, can you I shouldn't say that, it's not for giggles, but for real, can you adjust, from my standpoint, the school expenditures down by, and let's take a snapshot, right? So we're at 1701, 283 impact to Oklahoma 350. If we drop their appropriations by 60, this is 61,000.
61, go ahead.
It's in that range, 60,000 for easy number.
Due to 5.25%, impact of 275. $8 change.
I don't think it's worth the change. I think leave it, for me, I would leave it as what the school proposed. So I would like to move forward with Bob's proposal, motion, and that was seconded. I'd like to take a stand and seeing how many people think right now that is a good move. So for all those who agree with that, please raise your hands. Okay, 1, 2, that's 4, and those who disagree? 4 to 3. Now, let me understand, in this meeting, we can vote on the budget? I know we just took a vote, but I'm not clear on if that counts or we have to do it next week.
Typically, we have you set up for the agenda where you'll vote on the school and the municipal budget at the April 1st meeting.
Okay,
That's your last opportunity for the school, though, because that has to go to print. Give that to our city clerk, go to print, and get that ready for the June election.
right.
So typically, in this last meeting, you get the consensus with the council, you know where the votes are going to be, and then we move all of this information forward for the public presentation. Well, we won't go through all of the presentations again and such, but the council will vote on, at the April 1st meeting, vote on the budgets.
All right. So apparently there's no more discussion. So we'll vote on that at the April 1st meeting.
All right, is there anything else we need to do preparation-wise for the school or the city in preparation for that?
No, I don't see any.
Okay.
Okay.